Hello and welcome to Cyber Life. My name is Ken Underhill, your host. In today's episode, we have a special guest, another professional hacker named Phil Wylie. Phil is a professor at a number of universities as well as local colleges. He's also an active practitioner in the industry. He's worked in a number of senior roles around hacking or penetration testing, as we call it in the industry. And Phil has mentored thousands of people all over the world, and he's also a best-selling author of a book called The Pen Test Blueprint, which I do recommend you pick up off any retailer, including Amazon.com. So Phil, I wanted to ask you, when we talk about businesses, what are some of those common mistakes that you see business owners or businesses in general making around cybersecurity?
Yeah, one of the first things I'd like to bring up and that I've seen a lot of, and a lot of companies are still doing this, is not doing the remediation after the pen test. A prime example was I did a pen test for a company, came back 90 days later. They haven't remediated the finding. The finding was a low finding originally, and between the time I did the original test and came back into the retest, there was an exploit that was created. So that vulnerability could be exploited. So it went from a low vulnerability to like a higher critical finding. So making sure you're getting those things, the vulnerabilities remediated, because you never know when someone's going to come out with an exploit for it.
Okay.
Take it seriously, because I hear a lot of that industry. I've known a pen tester that turned digital forensics guy because he was doing pen test. He would go back to customers and they weren't fixing it. So he felt like he was wasting his time. So he went into digital forensics, because when someone has a breach, that's useful information, and what he does is being helpful. So, make sure you're remediating and taking that seriously, because someone can, breach that, and it could end up something serious. And another thing too is, once I was doing a pen test and was able to, from a SQL injection vulnerability, to get command line access to a server internally, and although it ended up being a development server, I was able to get on their network, and their development and production are not segregated. So if you're able to get access to that, the scope was the application. So I didn't go past the server, but if it would have been other items in scope, then I could have went to other servers on the network.
Phil, I wanted to focus on penetration testing for a moment. There's sort of a cliche out there that only really, really big companies, like your Amazon or your Google of the world, those companies should be the ones getting penetration tests. But what are your thoughts? Should any company of any size be getting some type of a penetration test?
I think a lot of that's not even going to depend on the size of the company, but depend on, their exposures. So if you're running a internet-based company, then yeah, you want to make sure that you're getting it tested. And there's different levels. Like testing a single website isn't going to be as expensive as an enterprise having 200 applications tested. So the volume is going to differ from company size to company size, and so it's just a matter of getting that tested. And I would say, like, if it's any kind of exposure externally, if you're handling, if you're a doctor's office, you're handling patient data, customer health records, that stuff needs to be tested. So I would say a lot of it depends on, the kind of information you're keeping, as well as, if you're any kind of credit card transactions and that type of stuff. Because one of the things is you're going to get bad publicity if you do get breached or something like that. So it's always a good idea, and it's better to be proactive. And it's definitely one of the things that a lot of companies only do it for compliance reasons. And really, honestly, if you put security at the forefront, then the compliance stuff is going to take care of itself.
So Phil, what are some things that those smaller companies out there can do to actually protect themselves a little better?
Yeah, I think they may not need, like, a really small business may not have to go to the point of having pen tests done, but they need to make sure that they're running antivirus, keeping their software and operating systems up to date, making sure if they've got Wi-Fi in their environment, they're using, really strong passwords, and that type of thing. That's really where they're going to get their most effective prevention from. They're not, and some of the smaller businesses may not be as big of a target, but they still need to, to take it serious, and just some minor things can go a long way. Make, like I said, antivirus, and, making sure that they're keeping things patched.
So oftentimes we think we got to defend things really well, we've got to spend all this money, etc. But a lot of times, adversaries are getting into things because we're not doing certain things as business owners or people working in a business. So, Phil, do you mind just sharing, like, what are some of those common things that maybe businesses are missing the ball on?
I would say systems not being up to date, but also, using default credentials because there's been pen tests I've been on before and someone was using Apache Tomcat and they were using the default credentials because a lot of the testing tools will test for default credentials and there's whole websites that just have lists of default credentials. So that's what people are going to try because a smart pen tester or a smart malicious actor is going to go for the easiest route in first because there's default configurations. Sometimes people that are writing the web apps may put in usernames and credentials in there because they're working with a group and they kind of comment it out of the HTML, not expecting anyone to find it, but they don't take it out when they get done. So that's there for attackers to find. So yeah, some of the most simplest things, making sure you're taking care of all those easy to remediate or prevent things is going to go a long way.
So, Phil, I worked in healthcare for a number of years. I worked as a pediatric nurse, worked in hospice, worked in cardiology, electrophysiology with adults. And I have an opinion, but I want to see your opinion. Do you think that healthcare organizations as a collective are actually taking a more proactive approach to security, or do you feel that they're kind of lagging behind other industries?
I think it depends on the size of the organization. If it's a small doctor's office, they may not see the need as much as a hospital chain. Most of my experience with healthcare has been hospitals. I did a wireless pen test once of a hospital and physician office chain, and they were pretty serious about it. But one of the things I had recognized from some of the hospitals and stuff I tested, they're kind of shorter staffed. I tested this one a hospital that the CISO did everything. The chief information security officer was the security guy, but they were starting to get in, uh, you know, get in some staff to get him some help. So I think one of the biggest things is being shorthanded in some of those situations. But you know, with ransomware, it's definitely important that you're secure. You got your endpoint protections in place, doing your training. You know, teaching the people that are using email in the organization not to click on things because a big percentage of the breaches nowadays are because of someone clicked on something, a phishing email with malware or ransomware, something along those lines. So definitely, not only secure the organization, but educate. That security awareness goes a long ways. You can have the most secure network, uh, website, but if someone clicks on the wrong thing, they're going to get in. You look at a lot of the major breaches, that's what happened. Someone clicked on something and, malware got into the environment or ransomware. And the ransomware has been a pretty big thing, and it's pretty scary when it comes to hospitals because you got critical data there that doctors need access to. So it's very critical that they make sure that they're secure. And pen test in general is just basically testing from an adversarial perspective because just running a vulnerability scanner to find vulnerabilities doesn't really do a good enough job because there's underlying vulnerabilities. If an attacker or a pen tester is testing it and they're able to get past that first layer, there may be all sorts of stuff they can get to underneath. It could be a lot more severe, even having be able to figure out username and password of a system, the exterior part of the security, may be hard to break into, but once you're on the system, you're able to get to other different databases and systems and information.
Yeah, interesting perspective, Phil. And we had seen with the pandemic, especially that a lot of healthcare organizations are so vulnerable. Medical devices are so vulnerable, and it's not just your pacemaker or defibrillator; it's also infusion pumps, etc. A lot of different ways that these attackers can get access to you, and it becomes very, very scary when we talk about someone way across the world, maybe in Russia or Australia or even Antarctica, and they're able to turn off your pump while your grandma's in the hospital, right? They're able to turn that off and cause some harm or even death to your grandmother. It becomes very scary and very real at that point. Phil, any final thoughts or advice for the viewers out there?
Yeah, just the one thing is just think of being proactive. Don't wait until it's too late, and educate your employees and your end users. Make sure you're using good quality, uh, you know, security awareness, and then even do customize your security awareness internally. probably some of the most effective or most impressed I've been with some organizations is to have, like, on their monitors throughout the building where you make the announcements, have messages up for security awareness. And I think also to not punish your employees for doing the wrong thing when they click on something, but kind of award your employees for doing the right thing. So if they're going through a phishing campaign and they do well, they forward the email on, they're not a victim to that phishing campaign, reward them, give them points, just kind of collect points throughout the year, and then just kind of give them some kind of added health benefit or give them gift cards. So I think if you entice them to work good at protecting the company and make it kind of a company-wide thing, you're going to get better results than punishing someone.
Well, thanks again for coming on the show today, Phil. Really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. Thanks for taking the time out to hop on. Again, be sure to pick up a copy of Phil's book, The Pentester Blueprint, off Amazon or any of a number of retailers. You can also reach out to Phil directly on LinkedIn and just ask him if he'll do a signed autograph copy for you and make you feel very, very special. Be sure to follow the Cyber Life over on LinkedIn as well as on our YouTube channel, and always connect with us on cyberlife.tv. Look forward to seeing you in the next episode.